Welcome back to the Power Chat, sponsored by our friends at Blue Mark Energy. In the first half of our Jeff Mittie Power Chat, we talked about his career leading up to Kansas State, Missouri Western, Arkansas State, and TCU. And after 15 years at TCU, Kansas State comes open. Why exactly did Jeff Mittie make the move to Manhattan? We now continue our Power Chat. Welcome back to the Power Chat with women's basketball coach Jeff Mittie here in the WTC Gig Powered Studios. And of course, we're sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. If you need natural gas, make sure you check out Blue Mark Energy. Okay, so you're TCU. Shannon's a professor there? I didn't realize until doing research. She has a PhD?
She does. She does.
What was her area of teaching?
Well, early childhood development in psychology. So she has her doctorate. She did her doctorate after all the kids got into school and kind of midway through. Amazingly that she did it, because I'm like the fourth child, you know, because all the events that we have. But yeah, she was getting her master's at TCU, and she gets an email from a professor that says you should get your doctorate. She was doing so well in his area that he's like, so he recommended her, and she ended up getting her doctorate at TCU and teaching and doing research there.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
She actually taught here at Kansas State too.
Okay.
Yeah, the first, maybe the first year back, and so she's not teaching now, but yeah, she likes it.
Very good. You ended up in Manhattan you came after the job in some ways, didn't you?
Well, I definitely had an interest.
Right.
I definitely had an interest. I think that any time that there is, in this profession, you never know what's going to happen.
Sure.
I did not think that there was going to be a change made, you know. I've always had an interest, Shannon and I have always had an interest in coming back to the Midwest. We've always known a lot about Kansas State because of Brad Seib and my sister. And we've spent a lot of time with K-Staters. When K-State played in the Cotton Bowl, we tailgated with a bunch of them down in Texas. So we've always followed Kansas State. And I've always felt like in women's basketball, this was such a good place to be. Fan support, knowledgeable, all those things. So yeah, so when it opened, in just seeing what K-State might do, there was mutual interest, so we just kind of took it from there.
Yeah, when Deb Patterson really had it rolling, I mean, they're selling out the venue.
Yeah.
I mean, that's notable in women's basketball.
It is.
You're not just letting people in. I don't know how much tickets cost, but they're actually buying a ticket to be there.
Yeah. I think that's even gotten, probably everybody across the country, we see a lot of articles now, that's getting tougher and tougher because of TV.
Right.
You know, now you can, ESPN Plus, you can sit there and watch every game. So now those challenges going forward for all of us, football, you're seeing football. I'm amazed at some of the football stadiums I'm seeing that don't have people in them like you would think they should. But I think here at Kansas State, we've got a good fan base. We've got a loyal fan base, and we need to win, and we win, I think people will be there.
We were talking casually between sections here about your huge TV. Those TVs or why people aren't showing up to games. You can sit in your house and watch a game on a 60-inch TV, never leave your recliner. It's pretty tempting.
There was a night last week that there were 3 games on ESPN Plus that I had an interest in watching. Arkansas Oral Roberts was one of them, obviously, because we just played Oral Roberts, but we also play Arkansas here. There was, I can't even remember the other 2 games. Oh, Notre Dame and Michigan State. We might play Michigan State in the Bahamas. And so, yeah, I sat there for 2.5 hours and kind of getting some work done, but also just enjoying watching a bunch of basketball.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's really, for the sport of women's basketball, it might hurt attendance, but the fact that all this is available for fans of the game just to watch is a total change. It's never been that way.
It is. I think what you're seeing, and I think you'll continue to see this across the country, not just in women's basketball, but I think the venues are going to get smaller.
I agree.
I think people are going to, the amenities people expect, I think you'll see more of that. When we eventually get to Bramlage, I think you'll see more amenities, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the final design it's not as big as it is now. You look at what we're doing for volleyball, that venue is going to be a unique venue. So I just think you're going to see that in television. All the good that comes from being able to follow your teams also creates some challenges, probably especially for us because our fans drive a pretty good distance to the game sometimes.
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think when they finally redo Bramlage, they'll probably put in more premium seating areas, boxes or whatever, and the actual benches number will go down, which is just a reality of the marketplace.
I think so, and I don't think that's bad. I mean, I love Bramlage, but it's definitely too big for women's basketball. You just don't see them. So I do think that when the redo, I'll be curious. They'll come out with a lot of design concepts and everybody will kind of go through them, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it that way.
As a longtime K-Stater, I'm not a fan of Bramlage.
Really?
They should probably have never left Ahern, but they did for a variety of reasons. It was my generation at Kansas State that voted to build Bramlage, and what we voted on is not what we got at all. So I will be fascinated to see if they can make Bramlage feel more, less sterile maybe, a little more homey and unique, because it just kind of is a bowl right now, which is nice. It's held up well. Yeah. It seems to be a better venue now than it was then.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, because back then in the late 80s, there were so many of the old barns still around that had this real feel to it. And then you built this big,
Yeah, I can see that. That it's kind of funny, the design trends that go. You can see, everybody in the 60s built it this way. Everybody in the 80s built this. San Diego State is very similar to Bramlage. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to guess it's around the same time frame because it is exactly the long steps down. There's no restrooms. You got to go all the way up. It's
an easy way to build it. Dig a hole, fill it in.
Yeah.
TCU, ironically, I think their redo, they got it right. It's not a big venue, it never was.
Right.
It's really nice in there.
Yeah, I was part of that design. I was on that committee. I did not coach in that building until I got to Kansas State. I like it. I don't like the floor. I don't like the floor. The floor is slick. It's
interesting.
And I don't know why that is, but it is slick. And I just don't like the look of that. But I do think they got it right in the other areas because it's a 7,000 seat arena. They kept it pretty similar. They did get it closer to the floor. There was a lot of space behind the benches, and I think that's an improvement.
Because that was an old, 40s, 50s roundhouse?
50s, just like Ole Miss. So you had that roundhouse. Ole Miss has a similar design, and Wichita State had that design. They since redid theirs, and very similar. Matter of fact, I flew up to Wichita State with a group because they compared TCU's arena to Wichita State's.
Interesting.
And Wichita State did that redesign where they got the seats closer to the floor.
So you start investigating this K-State job. When did you go, I want this job?
You know,
I mean, sometimes you can go out and go.
John moves pretty quick.
Yeah, he did.
You know, John moves pretty quick. I would say that it's hard to remember the timeline of that, but I would say about the third discussion, which was probably 6 or 7 days into it, and maybe the whole thing took 8 days. I can't remember exactly the timeline of it, but it kind of went from just this, you know, hey, we might have some interest in talking further. I sense that they weren't, you know, everybody's always trying to get a feel of, are you serious about looking?
Right. You're not just playing us for a raise.
Yeah, are you really going to leave TCU? You know, and John was pretty upfront about, hey, help me through this. We had built a house in Texas, and we had built that house in 2010, and had been there 4 years. And I've never been one that, I like our houses, but I mean, it's a house.
Yeah.
It's a house. I mean, you know, our family's more important in terms of, we had a lot of reasons. Excited about Kansas State. We had family reasons, time to maybe come back to the area. We just had a lot of really good reasons that made sense for us. So once we started having deeper discussions, I knew that I was all in.
It was a little surprising hire from our end. It was like, oh, that's unexpected, you know?
Yeah.
A guy with a good run, 15-year run. That's a long time to spend at any place. That does, even though you mentioned that about a house, that does become home. That the city. I like Fort Worth. I think Fort Worth's a cool place.
We loved Fort Worth, and we loved TCU, and the fact that we raised our kids there. I mean, you're right. We've got a lot of really good friends there, but. Coming back to Kansas State, or I say coming back to the Midwest, has been uniquely special to us in that, well, my dad was at the game last night, and we had coffee this morning, and, you know, you don't get very many of those.
No.
Shanna's family, she lost her stepdad and her mom and her dad in the last 3 years. But we got some good quality time with them here in the last 4 years that you wouldn't have gotten. On a home football game right now, we'll have as many as 15 people at the house. And so these are just, and then you throw in, I always said, look, we ain't going back to the Midwest, and the job's important. The job's got to be a full commitment, you know, and K-State's all in. And we have everything we need to be successful. So there were so many good reasons. And I wanted a place that also had the fan support, that had a college town. I hadn't really coached in a college town because Fort Worth is, and so I really wanted that. I wanted the fact that it mattered to people that when we play our rival Kansas, there's going to be 7,000 or 8,000 people in there. So that's been a really fun part of this.
So you coach one daughter at TCU, and Madison starts with you here, but she ends up at Fort Hays State.
Yep.
And that can't be easy. Simultaneous seasons.
Right.
And trying to find chances to go see her. I imagine Shannon makes it out there a little bit more, but
she makes it out there virtually every game, and obviously the MIAA plays in our area, Emporia, Washburn, Missouri Western, Central Missouri, all those games are in the area. So yeah, she'll make almost every one of them. That's kind of why she's not teaching now, because she's like, I'm only going to get so many more opportunities to follow the kids around. Nice. And I make it out as much as I can. I was able to make it out Friday. Usually Shannon will drive the 215 out there, and I'll work on film on the way out there, and I usually take the drive home is kind of how it works. I mean, you're always kind of trying to make the most of your time, both work and getting to see Madison. But yeah, that's been they were 32-2 last year. Got to coach against her a couple times. She hit a 3 this year exhibition. She had a pretty good game in here. So, yeah, it's been fun to watch her and her teammates play.
Did you box and won her just for the hell of it? You can do these things. You're the coach and the dad. You can throw the box and one at your own daughter.
Yeah. I could have, but we didn't. Yeah.
And Jordan transfers up to play football. He was at Texas
State, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that
That's cool.
wasn't
That's amazing.
Well, and it wasn't people kind of think it was planned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. I mean, not at all. He came home for Christmas. They'd had a rough year. He was going to graduate early. He was a unique grad transfer with 2 years left, and he said, "Look, I want to play with a winning program. I want to have the opportunity to go to a bowl." And they're telling recruits that a couple, 2-3 years we're going to be good. And he said, "I don't have that many years left." So in that process, I just I kind of turned coach, in that I'm like, well, you're going to have to take a leap of faith here, because you owe it to Texas State to tell them. We're not going to do what a lot of people do, is go find you a scholarship while you haven't told them. And I said, so you need to think about this. This is probably, I don't know, mid-December, let's say. And I said, and that was the first year of the early signing. I said, with the early signing, I don't know how many scholarships are going to be available. So you're really going to have to just trust that there'll be some out there. So he was pretty set on it. He let Texas State know, and Memphis was the first to offer him. Kansas State didn't have anything, and K-State was pretty honest about, hey, right now we're just not in a position to offer you a scholarship. And then all of a sudden he called me and he said, hey, I'm supposed to talk to Coach Snyder tomorrow. So this is probably 2 weeks later. And Coach called and offered him a scholarship, and he took a visit up here and sat down with the coaches and felt comfortable about the position and all the things that he was way more knowledgeable about than I am. He wanted to ask all the, hey, where do you see me on the D line? What, all the technical terms.
I find it interesting that when he signed, we thought, okay, this is going to be a good rotation guy. You need a lot of bodies in there. He's turned into a legitimate Big 12 defensive tackle. He's really good.
I think he's had a good career. I mean, hopefully they can finish strong. Yeah. I think that's the one thing that, he had great high school coaches. I mean, they were fortunate enough to win 3 state titles. Now, he was a middle linebacker at the time, so the position change and all that. But, he's been around winning coaches that have really helped him. Work ethic, discipline, toughness, good teammate, all the things that good programs have. And Texas State treated him like a young man. They treated him well. It was just the program was in a different rebuilding phase, and so for him to have this opportunity and then make the most of it, that's the thing. You get an opportunity, but you then have to put the work in, and then to go through the coaching changes. New coaches come in. Now you got to redo it again. But that's okay. That's life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's life. You ought to be waking up every day to be better than you were the day before, and he'll find that out when he gets in his profession. I mean, all those things will be great life lessons.
Trust me. Quick change happens. Sudden change happens. And
yes.
Okay.
As you know, right?
Yeah.
Right.
This is your life now, and you got to deal with it.
Yeah.
You can't sit around and worry about it. And they, as we record this, they've gotten to the 6-win threshold, so he will get to play in that bowl game. We don't know what bowl it is, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was one of his stated goals when he said, transfer. I want to play in a bowl game, and they narrowly missed it last year with the last game at Iowa State, and then that was disappointing.
Yep.
And then with the coaching change, the one thing I think about it's been so much fun to be able to watch him, because I only saw 2 or 3 games a year at Texas State. Right. That's the one thing that if he was playing down at Texas State and we had a home football game here, there's a pretty good chance that we had recruits here.
Right.
And so I just would not be able to go. We've got a job to do here, and if I would always get the schedules out and go, oh, this will work, these other 8 won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Now with Kansas State, I've been able to see almost every game this year, and
Nice.
that's been a lot of fun.
Very nice. Um, this team that you have this year, there's something about it. You were picked fifth, and you weren't happy about being picked in the middle of the pack in the Big 12. You've got a really nice core, and Peyton Williams is a special athlete, probably in some ways one of a kind.
Well, certainly what she's doing is unique, and she's has a special ability to pick things up very, very quickly. So, I don't think you could do it if you weren't able to pick things up quickly, and that's still challenging for her. In our game last night. There were about 3 things that she messed up on because she just hasn't had the reps, you know. We're running a play we call Sky, and she's running a play we call Dream. Yeah. And she's the only one running Dream. And then she comes to the bench and says, actually, I was running Sparks. And I'm like, oh, wow, we're way off the map here. Yeah. And so there's just those things of having reps. But, you know, going back to being picked fifth, we finished 4th last year.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I mean, the chip on your shoulder always at K-State is a little bit like they never appreciate our players as much as I think they should.
I think you're right.
And it just, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it pissed me off.
Yeah.
But preseason polls, I never make that much out of them. But where I get sensitive to is that I get very protective of our players.
Sure.
I get very protective of the program, and it is a benefit to start third because then people out there are going, well, if you're the 3rd best team in the Big 12, then now all of a sudden you're showing up in the rankings. And those are type of things that we'll have every opportunity to prove them wrong. And that's on us to prove them wrong. So we'll have every opportunity. But even for like Peyton. I was irritated with the Big 12 that she wasn't player of the week. She had 19 boards in 22 minutes.
That's crazy.
Against Omaha. A double-double. And oh, by the way, she played volleyball 2 nights earlier. And I got on the phone with the Big 12 and I said, explain this to me. And I said, the process, and that's a whole nother story. We could have a whole nother podcast on that conversation that I had with the Big 12 on that.
I've always said that Kansas State programs are always judged by what they lost, and other programs in this conference, going back to the Big 8, are judged by what they return and what they gained. That it's just kind of the way, look at all the stuff, everything K-State lost.
Yeah.
And similar program south of here, let's say, might have similar losses, but look at these players they've added.
Right.
And so it's just kind of an ongoing frustration with anyone who's been around K-State sports.
Well, part of it, I know that part of it is the Texas influence. I was down there, and they all know the recruits that they're signing, and they have a high opinion of, And
there's more reporters voting in Texas.
There is, and so a player like Aoka Lee, who we signed out of small town Minnesota, they don't know anything about. Right. And I tell people, if she was in the middle of Texas, that kid's going to be recruited by everybody.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. And you're right, there are more reporters down there. There's more people covering the recruiting process in women's basketball. And so that already puts them up. But anyways, I mean, like I said, we'll get every opportunity to prove them wrong.
We talked about this before we started this because we ran into problems scheduling basketball student athletes to come in here and sit down because they have a clock now. This is only so many hours they can do their sports-related activities. How do you manage that with the two-sport athlete? Two-sport athletes have been around for a long time, but there didn't used to be this container in which they had to pour everything they do. That's got to be really difficult.
Yeah, the difficult thing is Peyton has to take Sunday off.
Right.
We played yesterday, Monday, so she had 0 prep time for the Monday game. And while we can do other things, she can get her scouting report on Friday. We have to do some things uniquely with her that I'll give you an example. we had our fours guarding their best player last night. Now, it was not a good matchup for us. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a good matchup for Peyton because she hasn't had the reps defensively, hasn't had the reps in guarding what she was going to have to guard last night. I decided to leave it because I'm like, this is our chance for her to practice it, basically.
Right.
And this is our chance for us to kind of be exposed a little bit and figure out our answers. Now, in a game where maybe it was closer, we would have had to make a switch there.
Right.
Fortunately, we played so well offensively that we were able to stay with it and force them to kind of be uncomfortable most of the night. But yeah, it is a unique situation. She's doing some great things, and she had a solid game last night.
When you go out recruiting, what do you look for in players? I mean, of course you want good players, good athletes, but there's got to be qualities that you seek in people that'll fit into your locker room.
Yeah, I think all the things that you're looking for, first and foremost, you want good teammates. You want players that are unselfish, players that have you can tell that when you talk to people that their team attitude is where it needs to be. We like to find out what else are they doing that isn't basketball related that shows that they're a motivated individual. For example, Kayla Goth was black belt in karate.
Didn't know that.
Took her 5 years to get it. So it wasn't just this easy process. So you want to look at kids like that have some things that you say, well, that's unique. That's unique. Then you get to the skill level of what you're looking for. The balance is trying to find enough athletes. You got to have athletes. Mm-hmm. You got to have some players that can make some plays that aren't scripted.
Right.
You know, that can play out of a situation and go make some plays. And then you guys have some players that fit in the system. We have wanted size because feel like that's a kid that'll be, we can get a niche there with our centers. We've got a good reputation with Brianna Lewis playing for us. We had a good reputation at TCU of good centers. Sandor Irvin was the number 3 pick. So we can sell that to recruits, and we've been successful there doing that.
And you need them in this conference. You've got some pretty good competition in this conference.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
Baylor's something special.
Well, and then you just look at Texas, 6'5". Charlie Collier was the number 1 recruit in the country 2 years ago. She's at Texas. Sedona Prince was at Texas. She was the number 5 recruit. She now has since transferred to Oregon. I was excited when she left Texas, and then we have Oregon on the schedule. Now we have to play, you know. So, but you do have to have some size, and but there won't be. I think we have the potential to have a front line right there with Baylor's, with Lee and Williams. They're going to have Cox, DeGrate, and Egbo, and I think we are right there with them.
Well, you're off to a good start. You get to go to the Bahamas, and it'll be interesting to see how this season develops. But you'll have a lovely tan. Probably. I
won't, but some others on the trip may. You know, it's always it's a work trip for us. The nice thing is you can pull out the laptop and you're looking at some water.
Absolutely.
And it's usually about 75, 80 degrees, so it's not bad.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So one of our traditions here at GoPowerCat.com is we have a podcast called The Overtime, which we let people ask us anything, not always sports related. So we brought it over to the Power Chats, and we've asked someone from our website, one of our users, Hoove4KSU, to ask you 5 off-the-cuff questions. So
okay.
Here we go. Kind of quick here.
All right.
You could have been a baseball coach.
Yep.
Why do baseball coaches wear uniforms, and why don't basketball coaches wear their players' uniforms? And would you?
I would not.
Okay.
I don't think anybody wants.
Answer.
I don't think anybody wants to see me in a basketball uniform.
Okay.
I do not know why baseball managers wear uniforms. I suppose that it goes back to a long-standing tradition of that back when there were player managers.
Zach, you got it. Yep, Zach got that right.
So that would be my guess, right?
Yep.
And
Just seems like a weird thing to continue. If I got a baseball managerial job, I'd show up in a nice little sweatsuit and say, I'm not wearing the pants with the little belt.
The one thing I would say is that the one thing about baseball is that, you know, a lot of managers will still get out there and hit fungos, and that's just part of kind of the stuff you like to do as a baseball coach. Yeah, right. Why?
While working for the Royals, did you have any moment, you mentioned you were in charge of talking to the other managers, that you found yourself starstruck by someone you were dealing with?
Yeah, I think all the time. In that I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the other things I was in charge of was player interviews before the game, of which they hated to do. So that was always,
that's a weird baseball thing.
Yeah, and it was always kind of go down in the clubhouse and, hey, you got an interview at 4:50 or whatever, and I'm not doing that interview. Okay, you know the drill. I'm going to have to go upstairs, tell them you're not doing the interview. They're going to send me back down. And so, starstruck, they made it very clear. No autographs, no nothing. You're not here to be starstruck.
I'm staying with my guys. I don't sign autographs.
So I would say that they made it very clear that you couldn't do that, but it was still hard to not be in the elevator going, oh man, I'm in the elevator with, you know, and those guys are my age. I'm 23, 24 years old, so a lot of them are 23, 24, 25 years old.
My weird moment was briefly, George Brett did a radio show on WHB. And so I'm a guest, and I have George Brett asking me sports questions. I'm like, this is like bizarro world. I don't know what's going on here. Your brother-in-law is Brad Seib, former K-State football player. If you could pick, I doubt it'd be lifting, but if you could pick an athletic endeavor to beat Brad's butt in, what would you pick? Golf?
Oh, it'd be golf every time. Be golf every time.
Is he a bad golfer?
He's like me. He's inconsistent.
Has he ever played through injury like you did with the knee?
What did he? I think he was trying to
hangnail once?
I think hangnail, and he actually tore his pec lifting, trying to lift too much for a 40-year-old, of course, right?
Yeah.
So I don't remember him necessarily playing through that one. I don't think I would. I think he uses that as an excuse.
I don't think a torn pec and golf go well together.
But we do get out to play golf quite a bit. We've played a tournament here, No Stone Unturned, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll play golf, I don't know, five, 6 times a year.
Kind of a two-parter here. Who's a better athlete, you or Shanna?
Shanna.
Yeah, does she make you call her doctor?
No, she doesn't. But she would like it if I would.
And finally, let's wrap this up. And let me mention again, the person who asked this question is named Hoove for KSU. Who's your favorite SID you've ever had prior to working with Randy Peterson at K-State?
You know, I've had so many. Probably the most unique one was Matt Hoover.
Well, I'll be darned.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
And he's a big K-Stater, too. So,
he's a good dude.
Yeah, he is a good dude. And get to see him occasionally, bump into him occasionally. He'll be yelling at me when I'm on the sidelines at a few football games. But, yeah, nice questions, Hoove. Yeah.
He was well prepared. I like it when they're well prepared. Coach, thank you very much for doing this. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks, Fitz.
That'll wrap it up for this edition of the Power Chat. We will see you next season with more Power Chat.